Hey there, this is Sahil Verma from Shray Projects. You know what's interesting? Every week I meet investors who are absolutely convinced that they've figured out the perfect property investment strategy. Some swear by residential, others by commercial. But here's the thing, they can't both be right. Or can they? Let's have a chat about this. Just you and me. I'll share all what I've learned by helping hundreds of investors make this exact decision. Now, if you're anything like most of our clients, you're probably thinking about building long-term wealth through real estate. That's smart. But, and this is crucial, commercial and residential isn't just about the numbers. You see, as COO of Shray Projects, I've noticed something fascinating. Many investors rush into decisions based on what their friends are doing. Therefore, they miss out on opportunities that would have been perfect for their specific situation. Just last week, I was sitting with an investor who was ready to put all of his savings into commercial property just because his friend made great returns. But after we analyzed his goals, guess what? A mixed property portfolio made much more sense for him. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how to make this decision for yourself. Commercial properties are money-making machines designed for business operations. Let's break down commercial properties first. But before I show you the impressive returns they can generate, you need to understand what you're getting into. Types of commercial real estate are office spaces, grade A corporate buildings, co-working spaces, and business center. But here's what makes them special. These aren't just buildings. When you buy a property here, you're buying into a business ecosystem. Retail units. These are shopping complexes, standalone stores, food courts, etc. etc. I've seen investors transform their portfolios with one strategic retail investment. But, and this is crucial, location plays an even more bigger role than you might think. Now let's talk about something we all understand, residential property. But don't let this familiarity fool you. Therefore, we have to look at them through an investor's lens. Residential properties are human habitats that generate wealth through fundamental human needs. Specific types are apartments, independent houses, residential complexes, and individual housing units. The advantages of residential properties are that they have a lower entry level investment, you have a more flexible market over here for them, there is a broader tenant base, and there is more potential of appreciation अगर आप developing areas में पैसा लगाएंगे, and in the end there is more emotional connection with these properties and it is easier to understand जो भी first time home buyers होते हैं उनके लिए. At the same time, there are several challenges that you might face when you invest in residential properties also, which are that these properties have lower rental yields. इनसे जो किराया आता है, जो yield आती है, वो कम आता है in comparison with commercial real estate. Then you have higher tenant turnovers, which means that tenants, you might have to find a new tenant after 6 months, 1 year, max to max 2 years. And then you have to be more hands-on with management of the properties. You have to be concerned about कुछ खराब हो रहा है, कुछ change हो रहा है and all that. Then these properties have great impact because of demographic shifts. अगर जहाँ पर new cyber city आ जाएगा, जहाँ पर new SEZ बनेगा, there might be people shifting over there, so they have a lot of impact on them. And then in the end, there is more government intervention in this, that regulatory intervention that you might have to take care of on your end. Moving on to the advantages of commercial real estate. Commercial properties are like the marathon runners of real estate, with having higher rewards for those who are willing to go the distance. The advantages are higher rental yields. Usually 3 to 7% fetch कर लेती है commercial properties. However, under construction properties can also fetch about 12%. Now compared to rental returns that you get in residential, which is only 1 or 2%, they give you very good returns. Second of all, the tenant stays longer with you. There is the leases are usually for 3 to 9 years typically, so with which the tenant turnover ratio is really less. Then comes in that there are more potential of having stable relationships with your tenants, as it is a long-term lease that you get into. You already know what's going to happen after 2 years or 3 years of your lease being signed. In the end, there is potential of having triple net leases in which the tenants cover costs like maintenance, taxes and sometimes insurance. क्योंकि ये commercial real estate है तो आपकी volatility decision making की इसमें कम होती है और आप काफ़ी practical होकर decision ले लेते हो without having any emotional barriers or any attachments for the property. Commercial property investment के भी कुछ challenges होते हैं, जैसे इनको अक्वायर करने के लिए आपका इनिशियल कैपिटल यूजुअली हाई चाहिए होता है, विच मीन्स इनको कहीं बारी लेने के लिए क्या पता आपको एक ही बारी में पूरी प्रॉपर्टी के पैसे देने पड़े टू अक्वायर वन ऑफ दीज असेट्स. सेकेंड ऑफ ऑल, इनका लीगल फ्रेमवर्क और कंप्लायंस वर्क थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होता है इन कंपैरिजन विद रेजिडेंशियल प्रॉपर्टीज. इट्स वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स टू डील विद सच काइंड ऑफ असेट्स. Then comes in the maintenance cost and customization cost. To make anything in these complexes or to even pay for the maintenance is usually a lot higher than comparison with residential assets. They are also very sensitive to economic cycles. Let's say there is a downturn in the economy, then you cannot expect commercial to do very well. तो आपका risk appetite ज़्यादा होना चाहिए. In the end, आपका ना एक बहुत different kind of relationship होता है with the tenant over here. It's more professional, it's more what has been committed to. It's not like your residential tenancy जिसका time period short होता है. तो इसीलिए here is more professional, more stable, a different kind of relationship that you share with the tenant. Now, while we have spoken about advantages and challenges, let's deep dive into how economics of financing and taxation of these investments work out. Your financing strategy is as crucial as your property choice. It can make or break your future investment returns. Now here's the thing. This is where a lot of investors get stuck. The money part. But talking about residential property loans, these generally have lower interest rates. Interest rates are usually about 8 to 9% typically for a home loan that you might take with any government or any private bank like HDFC in India. Then there is a longer repayment tenure. The repayment tenure for a home loan can be stretched up to about, I think, 30 years or something, ranging from 20 to 30 years in this. Then there are more, let's say the document process is much more flexible if you want to take a home loan. The eligibility criteria for these loans are much flexible. Even the government of India gives you some supportive schemes like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, in which you get subsidized loans from the government itself. And there is also a tax benefit for all the people who want to take tax benefits with section 24 and 80C of the Income Tax Act as well. At the same time, commercial properties loans have a different criteria altogether. They have a higher interest rate, typically which goes from 10 to 12%. The loan tenure is also much shorter, like maybe 10 to 15 years at the max. Then you have the processing fee for these properties can get really high in comparison with residential properties जिसमें processing fee कई बारी waive off भी कर देते हैं banks. Then commercial properties have stricter eligibility criteria in which the lenders assess risk onto a different level, and there is more financial comprehensive paperwork also required with these properties, such as 3 साल की ITR, which is in profits, your company has to be in profits, all your directors have to be on board, and future plans of the company also have to be shown in order to take such comprehensive loans for commercial real estate. These commercial properties also come with really high down payments which go up to 30 to 40% in comparison with residential real estate जो कि 10% ही था. Let me also highlight that for residential properties and commercial properties, there are taxation laws and implications that might be associated with both of them. For residential properties, taxation laws entail capital gains tax provisions like long-term capital gains tax is at about 20% with indexation. You get exemptions if you invest further into any residential property, And there are exemptions that can also be taken with section 54 of the income tax. Income taxation laws are standard deduction of 30% on rental incomes and tax benefit on home loan interest payments. GST implications on residential properties are that there are lower GST and reduced GST rates for affordable houses, and there is a lower tax burden on residential property transactions. Moving on to commercial property taxation, the following needs to be kept in mind. GST for these properties usually have a higher rate of GST, which is at 18%, and you can also get input tax credit because these are transactions for business use. Capital gains tax for commercial property are different taxation according to business structure. You have a potential of seeking depreciation benefits, and there is complex tax treatment for the commercial property according to the business structure. There are also higher stamp duties. Stamp duties and registration values are usually higher than residential properties, and which are varied by different states in India and according to the property value. At this point, you might be thinking, Sahil, this is great information, but still, how do I make this decision? Which is why I saved the best for the last. Let me take you through and share our proven decision framework. Your investment strategy should match your financial DNA, realizing that one size will never fit all. Factors to consider are personal investment goals, market analysis, and financial preparedness. Personal investment goals such as short-term versus long-term objectives of your life. क्या आप इस प्रॉपर्टी में रहना चाहेंगे? क्या आप इसको सिर्फ इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए ले रहे हो? क्या आप इसको रेंट पे लगाने के लिए दे रहे हो? These are all your decisions that you have to take for the property. Then comes in your available capital. आपके पास में आज पैसा कितना है? How much capital do you have today to invest into real estate? And in the end, your risk tolerance. कितना आप रिस्क ले सकते हो उस अवेलेबल कैपिटल और जो फाइनेंसिंग ऑप्शन ले उसके साथ में फॉर योर ओन ऑब्जेक्टिव विच इज शॉर्ट टर्म और लॉन्ग टर्म इन नेचर. Market analysis before investing. In this, you have to consider local economic growth indicators. You have to spot the areas where economics is growing, businesses are growing in the same city or in a new area, in a developing area, somewhere like that. Then you also have to see infrastructure development. Infrastructure development like क्या वहाँ पे कोई airport आ रहा है? Is there a new expressway being built? Which is going to show you the future growth projections of the area. You have to analyze कि वहाँ पर आने वाले 5 से 10 सालों में क्या growth opportunities होने वाली हैं. Also, keeping in mind जो micro market trends हैं उस new developing areas के. For example, if there is going to be a new cyber city in that area, we are very sure there will be demand for residential properties over there and commercial real estate also. Financial preparedness is also very important. Make sure you have capital availability. आपके पास में required capital हो. You should have loan eligibilities also. Just in case you need that financing option, आपके पास में loan eligibility होनी चाहिए. Now to see dynamic economic trends also, you have to have risk mitigation strategy. ऐसा नहीं कि आपने सारा का सारा पैसा ही उधर लगा दिया है. You should not do that. And in the end, you should have diversification potential. Let's say property is not doing very well. You should have the capital to diversify your portfolio into profit-making investments for the short term or the long term in life. Let's make this practical. But before you can take any steps, you need a clear action plan. Therefore, I'm going to give you 4 specific steps that you can take right after this video. No one size fits all solution. In this, it's your property. It is going to be your loan eligibility. It is going to be your risk. So you have to align that property investment with your objectives, future goals, loan eligibilities and financings that you may be able to get in order for your life to be stress-free and this investment journey to be positive. Then, importance of portfolio diversification. If you park all your eggs in one basket, you are bound to lose. You have to know the realization of having a kitty of properties in which you may have some commercial office spaces, some commercial retail stores, some residential apartments, some independent housing units, or some independent plots for yourself to invest also. Suggested strategies from Shray Projects for property investments are to start with residential real estate. Residential real estate is fairly easy to understand. You get better loans, there's better financing options available. It is a much easier game to play, which can be taken in course with your objectives also, for having a home, for having a short-term residence to stay, and making it as an investment also for yourself. Once you've learned something from buying residential real estate, you can gradually transition into buying commercial properties for yourself. We wouldn't advise you to get clearly and immediately into the range of buying retail properties for yourself. Get into long-term office spaces, get into lockable office spaces, which could be a good transition from moving from residential properties into somewhat rental yields in commercial. Once you have a combination of residential and commercial assets, we would suggest you to have a mixed property portfolio in which you have a bit of everything, which means you should have a plot, you could have an apartment, you could have an office space, you could have a retail area, you could even get into agricultural land to hold for a longer period of time if you have that long-term objective in life. As real estate is a complicated game which involves a lot of capital, we would always suggest you to keep talking to your team of finance, which is basically your tax consultant, your real estate consultant, and even your chartered accountant, to give you an insight of what you can do, what you can play around with, how much money can you access today. All these things are going to have you give a bigger horizon to your own thoughts, and which way you will be able to make a more understandably better decision with real estate. We started by understanding the property investment landscape and explored the key features of commercial and residential real estate. In commercial real estate, it's backed by higher rental yields, longer leases, and stable tenant relationships, whilst also considering challenges like higher cost and legal complexities. On the other hand, residential real estate has easier accessibility, easier financing options, much more emotional value, which is balanced by lower yields and higher tenant turnover ratio. Also dived into financing and taxation. While residential loans offer lower interest rates and simpler processes, commercial properties have higher upfront payments and stricter terms. Tax benefit can also be very significantly different amongst the two properties. Finally, we outlined a strategic framework for making your investment decisions, emphasizing on aligning your choices with your personal goals, market insights, and financial preparedness. Remember, there is no one size that fits all solution. Diversification is key. You start with residential and gradually transition into commercial as your portfolio grows. At this point, this might seem like a lot to take in, but that's why I'm here. If you're feeling overwhelmed, remember this one thing: successful property investment isn't about the perfect choice. It's about an informed choice that aligns with your goals. Therefore, I want you to do 3 things after watching this video. Firstly, reflect upon your investment goals. Secondly, write down your top 3 concerns. Thirdly, share them with me in the comment section below, and I will make sure to respond to every comment personally. And hey, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We're in this journey together. This is Sahil Verma from Shray Projects, and remember, in property investment, the best time to learn is always now. See you in the next video.